Welcome to Brain Wellness, the podcast. I'm your host, Mandy NP. Each episode will bring you a new topic or interview related to brain health and wellness as part of my mission to help you on the path to a healthier, happier brain. So, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Brain Wellness, the podcast. My guest today is neurological chiropractor Dr. Brandon Allen. Dr. Brandon has always strived for intense challenges to develop himself. From a self-proclaimed overweight nerd in high school to a decorated combat vet, after his service, he decided to get his bachelor's degree and his doctorate of chiropractic concurrently while starting his family. During this time in school, he made a point to surround himself with the best doctors he could find to help develop him as a doctor. And I am so excited to have this conversation today. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Brandon.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here as well.
Yeah. Yep. So we're going to have a really cool conversation, but we always start off with my first question, and you know it because you've been listening to the show. Tell me a little bit about your story. How did you get to doing what you're doing today?
It's a little bit of a meandering story, but I swear it's all pertinent. Basically, like you said, school was relatively easy growing up. And so, I had no problem, with school. All the honors classes, never really tried anything, never really had to try at anything. And so I was like, well, I'm ready for a challenge. So I decided to go into the Marine Corps. And, if I'm going to do the Marine Corps, I may as well, kick down doors for a living. I went in the Marine Corps infantry. And that was a whole different challenge. Really got to grow and develop myself there. And with that also comes some aches and pains because the Marine Corps doesn't really care if you feel good or not, as long as you get the mission done. So for whatever reason, running with running 6 to 12 miles a couple times a week with 100 pounds on your back just doesn't do so well on your knees. So that's actually what brought me to chiropractic. As a chiropractor, flipped me around pretty quickly when it came to rehabbing my knees. I tried a lot of things before that, and that didn't really help. And then a chiropractor flipped me around like a week and a half. So it's like, cool. I want to help people give people their lives back. So after Marine Corps, that's when I jumped into my bachelor's completion as well as my doctorate concurrently. And so I was taking two course loads side by side, and then my son was born in the middle of all that, which was enough. But I also really focused on being able to surround myself with the best docs. So one of the docs I trained underneath, his name is Dr. Tim Stark, and he's one of the best sports chiropractors in the world. He'll never admit that, but he is. He's literally written books about it. He's known for creating Olympic level chiropractors, like people that he trains go places and they do things. So I kind of got the knack down for that. And within school, I was canceling back surgeries for medical doctors for like my third patient. My third patient was a medical doctor. He was scheduled to have back surgery. He had seen other chiropractors and neurologists before. I was like, let me give it a shot. I was like, I like you. He's one of my teachers too. It's like, I like you. I'll give it a shot. And with like 5 appointments, he was like deadlifting, 300 pounds again. He's like, cool, I'm good. It's like, yeah, you are. I don't know. I decided to move on to the next challenge because that was, if I could do that with my third patient, I was going to get bored really quickly with the musculoskeletal stuff. And so I found Dr. Schmo locally in Minnesota here. And he's a neurodiplomate, so he's essentially the neurologist of chiropractors. He's a total nerd himself, and I was actually his first intern. I reached out to him and I was like, hey, I see what you're doing. I like what you're doing. Will you please just let me follow you around for a handful of months? And so we were able to make that work. And I trained underneath him and just kind of figured out, I just got months of hands-on training, and he showed me resources that I need to go explore and things like that. So I started self-studying, and then that brought me to neurocare, where I reprogram brains for a living, which is a lot of fun. So when I was working with Schmo, we worked on the best of the best and the worst of the worst, from Japanese Olympians to people that had 7 strokes by the time they were 30. And so that's who we got to work with. And then I took that knowledge, and now that's what brought me here.
I think that's why we get along so well, is that neither one of us really had to work to learn things before. We're both kind of nerdy that way.
Yes, we are.
Makes things interesting when trying to recover from a concussion.
Yeah.
Being in the military, I'm sure you had just a couple of those yourself.
When I was in Afghanistan, I was nearby about 200 blasts. So I myself was never blown up, which I'm thankful for. But there's enough there. There's probably a couple of wires that are a little crossed.
I think all the best of us do have a couple of wires crossed. It's all good.
That's fair.
Yeah. So finding your kind of niche in neurocare, how does that fill buckets for you? What are you enjoying about it?
Well, I have a very unique model that I'm primarily mobile, and I try and keep my overhead really low. So really the bucket that gets filled is I don't have to work on the professional athletes or the trust fund babies. because that's really who we see a lot of. I mean, a lot of people that do this type of work, it's very specialized care. We give people their lives back, and it's absolutely worth it for a lot of people, but it is cost prohibitive for a lot of people too. People just can't make it work. And so I saw a lot of that. And so that's why I went with the mobile clinic, to be able to try and keep my overhead as low as possible, but to be able to try and help bring this care to at a more affordable cost. Still, people's not definitely not people's cheapest chiropractor still, but I try and be their most affordable, and I try and give them their life back as quickly as possible. So it fills the bucket of being able to give kids their parents back. It fills the bucket of being able to just give people their lives back. That's a bucket that gets to fill for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about neurological chiropractic care. What exactly is it for people that don't know and aren't familiar?
Yeah, so there's kind of two different camps in neurological care, and so one of them I would consider one of them is the more like central neurologic, which is more what I do, and the other one's more peripheral, and that's more like the standard chiropractors that I would say. So we'll focus on the central stuff. So the things that I do, basically what I do is I look at eye and body movements, see what's working in the brain and see what isn't working in the brain, and find rehab to be able to help things work. So sometimes that means going in through pathways that are working really well and helping strengthen those to be able to affect areas near that part of the brain that aren't working well, or just powering through and really finding that spot that isn't working well and just blasting through it and getting through it. So it's a really weird dance of this, eyes are doing this, body's doing this motion is hard to them, balance is unstable here, and it's just this little intricate little web that I get to that we get to weave on how your actual brain function is working, and then go in and rehab it. And so even if someone's MRI comes back normal, saying there's no imaging functional loss or functional damage, it doesn't mean there are a couple wires crossed. And so I can find where those wires are and uncross them and get them rewired into their correct spots. So things, all the weird stuff, dysautonomias, the unilateral dysautonomias, it's all this weird stuff. And really what I'm doing is I'm taking the same tests and exams that a lot of neurologists are taught, but I'm just applying them in a different way. Okay. And, so I have a neurologist friend, and talking to him is like, oh, we use that for this, this, and this. It's like, yeah, but this is what it means to me when I do this, this, and this. And so we just we just talk about how those webs are different from one another, and they're both accurate, they're both true. It's just a different framework on the same test.
Yeah. So I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So most people are familiar with what a traditional chiropractor does. So how might an appointment with you look different from a traditional chiropractic appointment?
Well, I still do some of the traditional chiropractic care, but in the neural realm, most chiropractors, they might take like a scanner and scan up and down your spine, and they may call themselves a neurological chiropractor because they're assessing the neurology of your spine, and that's cool and all, but we're different. And they still get to help a lot of people. We just get to help people in different ways, right? And so, I don't use that scanner. I don't do any of that. And even when it comes to my adjusting, I may very well adjust people based on their brain instead of necessarily the joints, the joint feel. So I'm looking at eye movements. I'm looking at alternating hand movements, ear tap tests. I'm having people close their eyes and march in place. If it's, I'll pull out a V&G and take video recordings of people's eyes and map out their eye movements and tell them how many degrees per second their eyes are moving in their quick eye movements. It gets pretty nerdy pretty quickly. And I'm looking at everything. As a neuro provider, I'm sure you're aware, if someone's fidgeting, that's telling you something about the brain. If they're, rubbing one of their joints, it's like, oh, what's that doing to them? So it's a very, very intricate network. I almost never have two appointments that are the same, so it's a little hard to really describe that. But basically, an appointment with me gets real nerdy real quickly, and you can either be there with it or you can tell me to shut up. Either way is totally fine. We're going to be looking at a lot of different things.
Yeah. So you mentioned the V&G, and I do want to take a quick moment to talk about that because I know that was a newer tool that you've added. How has that changed what you're doing?
Oh, it's so much fun. I get way too nerdy about it way too quickly. Yeah. But basically, it is cameras that I'm able to attach to people's eyes, essentially. I just got through goggles, and that maps out their eye movements. So it can tell me how well their eyes are moving and how fast they are and smooth it and actually graph it all out. And so not only does this allow me to be able to pick up on way more subtle eye motions that can make a big neurological impact, but it also allows me to use that for patient education. And so I can show them these videos and I feel that I'm not crazy, or I can relate it directly to their symptoms. And I didn't even tell you that. This is what I'm going through. And so it really helps a lot with patient education and helps us track our progress a lot better, as well as picking up really subtle things that you just can't see without it. I mean, one of the fun things about this VNG is I can basically deny someone vision so they can't see anything at all, but I can still video record their eyes and see what their eyes do in the dark. And that tells me a ton about their brain. If their eyes have nothing to fixate on, what do? And they start drifting all over the place, or they start beating in different directions. It's telling me a lot about their eyes. And there really is no other tool that can do that. And this can directly correlate with sleep, and directly correlate with, just their underlying, like almost like metabolic load of their brain. If it's too activating, it tells me all sorts of things. So it's a game changer, honestly, to be able to map all that out and see all these really subtle things, while also being able to do the patient education side of things.
Yeah. So I remember the first conversation I had with you, we were talking about some of the more common things that are often missed. And when you got done describing those things, I told you those were all the things that I was still struggling with. And we have kind of checked off the boxes as we've been going along, improving almost all of those things now, I think, at this point. But could you share with the listeners like what those top things are that you typically see that are just missed in traditional medicine?
So a lot of times things that are missed in traditional medicine are things such as eye counter roll. So as you tilt your head side to side, your eyeballs should rotate in their socket to stay essentially horizontal with the horizon. This is how our brain is going to essentially perceive gravity. If someone doesn't have a proper counter roll, and it's either, that isn't working, what that's going to cause is basically a decrease in perception of gravity, or basically like a bad perception of gravity and acting on all your joints, and that's going to throw off all your rehab. So let's say you've already been doing vision therapy, and as you're doing your vision therapy, you have a slight head tilt, but your eyes aren't rolling appropriately. Your vision therapy is now landing on basically a sand foundation. It's just going to wash right away. And so we need to fix that eye roll. That's a huge one that people miss. And if you talk to other providers, they might even tell you it doesn't matter. In my line of work, I've seen that it matters. And so it's a really easy fix. So I say, let's fix it and see what happens. Another thing that often gets missed is dysautonomias. So basically people's flight or flight responses that are off. People that are really prone to stress responses may have a dysautonomia. Things like POTS. POTS is a form of dysautonomia. If you have POTS, you're probably one of the lucky ones because it'll actually get caught. If you don't have POTS, it doesn't get caught. And so there's all these little nuances to dysautonomia, and then there's clinical and subclinical. There's one side versus the other side, or both sides, and that can all change all sorts of things. So it's pretty uncommon for dysautonomia in general to be caught, but I don't think I've ever seen outside of my small circle of peers and mentors that have been able to catch unilateral dysautonomias. So that's definitely saying like half your brain is being chased by the tiger and the other one's on the beach in Mexico, and that's very different experiences, and it makes for a lot of static in your brain. So it makes things a lot harder. And then one other thing that would often be missed is something called optokinetics, or OPKs, and what that is basically bars going across your face, and we see that in like driving with like lines coming down this road, trees off to the side, walking down grocery store aisles, and all the lines on the side. Even turn your head and like there's a doorway there, and the vertical lines of the doorway that creates a reflex in your eye that is either underactive or overactive, is going to create static for your brain. I keep getting these calls. I'm never this popular, I promise. So those OPKs are definitely a major issue for a lot of people that are having this. My neurologist friend, when I was telling him about that, he started laughing. He's like, we were only taught that to see if someone is blind or not, and if they're faking it. It's like, oh, means a lot more to me. And he's like, that makes sense. And now that you break it all down, so that's those are the three biggest things that get missed, I would say, in concussion care or in a neurological exam, is the OPKs, the eye roll, and the dysautonomia.
Yeah, the dysautonomia is a big one. As you mentioned, POTS is probably the only one that gets caught, because the typical test is the tilt table. And it only catches if you've got POTS, which is only about 10% of all the dysautonomias. From what I recently learned, I'm like, oh, dang, there's a lot of dysautonomia that does not get caught on that tilt table test then. So how can we tell if somebody truly has it? I mean, I've been referring a lot of patients to you because of it, but how can you be certain?
Because there isn't like a gold standard test. It's very functional based. Okay. It's very it's almost like a diagnosis by exclusion. And then you can do things like look at their eye movement, see if they're having a hard time coming to convergence. Convergence is a stress response. And so if you can almost like fatigue out the convergence relatively easily, there's probably some miswiring in there. Pupils that are different sizes is a big one. especially if you can push on someone's first rib and even out their pupils, that can be a sign of dysautonomia. Your first rib gives a ton of sympathetic input. And so if you're able to regulate their eyes by changing the sympathetic input, there's probably one half their brain that feels like they're being chased by a tiger. So it's a little bit more of that functional aspect. They're also going to have a lot of sleep disturbances. They're going to have really low capacity for rehab. They're going to be burned out really quickly. They're just going to kind of struggle in all things life. And in particular, stress is a major trigger for them. Like, even more so than the average TBI patient. And the stress is just going to knock them out and they're going to be done.
Yeah. And I think that's where it came in, where I used to talk about hitting my wall all the time, where it just any kind of mental stress and I was done. That's definitely gotten better since we've been working together. So yeah, so I met you because I got to be your patient, but I have learned so much from all of our interactions that's why I was really pushing to come on the show here, because I think so many more people need to learn about people like you and your practice and how that can be integrated in concussion care, because it's been a game changer for so many people.
Thank you very much. I'm glad I've been able to help you out a lot. And this is a very unique aspect of medical care that people do just need to learn more about. When I left Dr. Schmoes, I asked him, like, hey, do you mind if I do this? I mean, I learned this from you. I mean, like, I don't want to step on your toes or anything like that. It's like, the more people that do it, the better. We just need awareness. Mm-hmm. There's no shortage of brain injuries out there. We just need more people learning about this. And so it's cool. It's kind of unique in that way that there's no competition, because we are just still in the education process of letting people know that we even exist. And we can change lives when we do meet someone. Hopefully, that's a goal at least.
Yeah, and there is no shortage of concussions and head injuries, because there's so many that happen every day. We have millions every year that we know about, and so many that we don't know about. Do you ever come across a patient that has all sorts of complex issues and they didn't realize they'd had a head injury?
All the time, especially with my hypermobile patients. A lot of times my hypermobile patients are much more prone to basically a subclinical whiplash that with like an associated concussion with it. Most of the time in the upper part of their brainstem where it lands. So they get a lot of this dysautonomia. They get the POTS. They get all these things because they have this really weird concussion that's just kind of in the upper part of their brainstem. So a lot of their other eye movements are totally fine. But yeah, all the time I see people that are like, hey, like, why'd you hurt your head? And like, oh, well, it could have been this and this and this. Well, were you ever diagnosed with a concussion? Well, no. It's like, well, you probably had one anyway. So that's definitely common, especially with gymnasts. Because again, the hypermobile aspect of things, people that are hypermobile like to become gymnasts. Gymnasts, one bad landing, fall on their head, whatever it may be, brush it off, you're fine. Maybe not. So, but at least a lot of times they're a little bit more prone to the POTS. So at least sometimes they get caught.
Sure. Yeah. And one thing that I've been reading a lot more about lately is jaw issues with concussion. So what's your experience seeing patients with jaw type of concerns?
I love working the jaw. The jaw is absolutely incredible to be able to work with people. Even like I have a fair amount of like teenage boys that wet the bed, work the jaw, goes away. It's crazy, absolutely nuts. So the jaw fires into an area called the mesencephalic nucleus, which if you look at the word like meso, like the meso area of the earth, it's very old, very primitive. Okay? So it's actually a pretty descriptive area of the brain. It's a very old, primitive part of our brain, and that means it can take up a lot of bandwidth, or it can create a lot of static. And so if you're having a lot of jaw issues and a lot of tension in your jaw, basically what that ends up doing is it creates a ton of static in towards your brain that you have to filter through at all times. And sometimes just releasing jaw can help release brain fog. It can help with concussion rehab. It can do all sorts of things. And then also it can be like a coping mechanism for people that have had a head injury. If they need more input, they'll almost like clench their jaw trying to get more input. But then you get all the things with the associated headaches and migraines and other things along those lines. So it's a messy little system that you definitely need to respect, because if you do the wrong jaw work, it's no good. So it's usually a less is more type of situation. But it is no fun. It hurts a lot to get done. But it is the essential part of being able to evaluate some to be able to rehab someone. In particular, if they have a migraine disorder or sleeping disorders, or even just brain fog and fatigue easily.
Do you ever get stumped when a patient comes through your door and you're like, this is something I've never seen before?
It happened this morning. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's where the Marine Corps got to influence me a little bit. In the Marine Corps, there's a saying, adapt, improvise, overcome. Okay. Just because I'm stumped doesn't mean I can't find out what it is. And just because I can't, and even if I can't necessarily pinpoint the exact nucleus in the brain that's affecting this or anything, it doesn't mean I can't find a way to decrease the symptoms and to be able to help stabilize. So even just this morning, working with a woman, and those OPKs were working well for both her eyes were moving, but one eye was moving differently than the other eye at the same time. And so one had a decreased gain or a return. And so it just kind of like ended up drifting away while the other eye was still trying to be focused. And obviously that is the two different side pitches with an OPK just absolutely wrecked her. So it's rough. And so, yeah, happened this morning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some research in the afternoon and I'm going to figure it out and I'll get back to her.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that ability to do the research afterwards, because sometimes it takes some digging and you can find stuff if the harder you look, and then reaching out to resources, right? I've sent you a couple text messages. Hey, what's going on with this? What can you tell me? And same with other people in my network now. It's just reaching out and communicating, because somebody's got the answer.
Yep. And I think that I'm always a little suspicious of providers that feel like they have the answers all the time. I'm always like, especially in this line of work, like this is a very complex line of work, and are there people in the world that could do it? Absolutely. But they're few and far between. And so whenever someone always seems to have the answer, I'm like, maybe we need to look into this a little bit more, because it's a pretty complex network. And there aren't very many people in the world that really just have it at their cuff of like, oh yeah, that's definitely this. Those people are few and far between. Probably single digits in the world. So I'm always a little hesitant of that. So I appreciate my providers, at least when I like, hey, what do you think about that? And like, let me look into that. Cool, I can respect that. So
yeah. And I can imagine you probably get to the complex of the complex, because as it is, I've been finding it as I'm working my concussion clinic, it's not the easy cases that are coming to me. They've been dealt with already, and it's the ones that are complex and they've got a lot of issues going on, and then it's out of that, it's the ones that are really complex that I'm sending your way. So you're getting the like the complex of the complex. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much, by the way. I love it. This is my favorite.
And it is a lot of fun to really kind of to dig through and figure out what's going on with those complex cases, because then when they come back and you've done something and they feel better, it is incredibly rewarding. Like you were talking about at the beginning, that's definitely a bucket filler.
It's incredibly rewarding, and it's also awesome getting referrals from, say, you, because I know that the groundwork was done properly. Most of the time, by the time people get to me, they've already been screened out by all the non-complex stuff. Like if someone comes to me with a vertigo, I know it's not BPPV because their medical doctor would have done that. It would have done Epley's in the room. The medical doctor would have fixed that before they even got to me. And so with that, I do get all the complex stuff, which is kind of a luxury for me, because I don't have to go through all the really basic stuff if I don't have to, because I get to walk right into the complex stuff. So that's fun for me.
So not everybody has a U next to them. So what should people look for if they're looking to start working with a neurological chiropractor?
Yeah, so again, different types of neurological chiropractor. So the biggest thing is you're going to look for a chiropractor that has their diploma in neurology. And I say that, and it's a little funny because I don't have mine yet. I have very, very good functional training, and I'm working on it. It just takes time, and somehow business owner, doctor, husband, all those things kind of get in the way of the extra tests and everything. So a diploma in neurology is going to be a good one. I'm going through Carrick Institute, so I'm partial to Carrick grads. We just kind of think the same way. So you can always look on Carrick Institute and find a provider near me. And then, but the biggest thing is, if you're look for providers that can either finish your sentence, basically be able to predict your symptoms, which I'm sure that you can do with your patients a bit. Be like, oh, and that means this, this, and this. And you're like, thank you. Go to a place that you feel heard. And that's the biggest thing with any sort of neurological care in particular. Go to a place that feels heard, that you can feel heard, and that they are actually listening to you and not telling you it's in your head. I mean, they're right. It is technically in your head, but they're probably applying it in the wrong way.
I was just going to say, your brain is in your head. So by that aspect, yes, it is truly in your head. But yeah.
But, if you don't feel respected, especially with neurological care, you're not going to get anywhere. You shouldn't be working with someone that isn't working as hard as you are to get you better. And so be with someone that's willing to ask those questions, willing to be able to like really understand. And there are providers all over the world that are really passionate, and they'll do that for you. It's just a matter of finding them. And so that's the Carrick Institute. It's a great resource. And then to be able to find providers, and then even if you're going more the traditional Western route, just find the providers that seem to actually understand. If you don't feel understood, you're probably right. So find those inquisitive ones, find those ones that have been through it, or that can just really, really comprehend what's happening.
Outside of concussion, are there any other favorite things that you like to work with?
I like vertigos. Vertigos are really fun to work with, especially with the chiropractic background. Since like the back doors and the vertigos can be really fun, and where like someone can be spinning and I adjust like their wrist, and they're like, "What you just do?" And usually there's some profanity with it as well, because that's how I roll in my office. But they're like, "What did you just do?" Or I have them do some like complex motion on one side or the other side, and it just stops them spinning. That's a great like instant gratification. Just to be able to get someone to stop spinning basically immediately, and be able to give them those tools to be able to stop a vertigo attack or anything like that mid attack out on their own. So one of my first vertigo cases when I was out on my own was a woman, and she went through an intensive program with some local PTs that does a good job, but she was still spinning like 2 weeks out of the month. And this is after months and months of care, like intensive care. And so I saw her for 3 times over the course of 3 months, once a month for 3 months. And at the end of it, I was like, "How are you feeling?" And she's like, "Well, I notice I get a little spinny if I eat spicy foods and I'm on my period." I'm like, "Can you handle that?" She's like, "I can handle that." It's like, "Cool, you graduated." But yeah, she was spinning, 50% of the time, where she was fighting back nausea, and just 3 appointments, we were able to knock it out just by fixing some of those really subtle things that make a huge impact on the brain. She hasn't reached back out, so I'm assuming she's okay.
That's crazy. That's crazy. And yeah, some of the movements that you do are kind of crazy, but I have no idea how they work, but they work. And it's immediate gratification, not only for you as the provider, but for the patient, just to feel that relief finally when nothing else has worked at that point.
Yep. And it helps the patient actually have value in their care. Neurological rehabilitation can take a long time, and it can be complex, and it can take time. So I always try and find something that you're like, this is a tool that you can use right here, right now. Basically, it's proof that what we're doing is working. And so that can help keep people's motivation up, because that's a huge thing with neurological rehab, is it takes a lot of motivation. It is not easy. It's hard. It's very hard.
Yeah.
So you need those little glimmers of hopes. You need to count your wins.
Absolutely. So one frustration I've had historically with chiropractors is that they do adjustments and then bye, see you next time. But you don't take that same approach. You give people homework when they leave. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want people living on my table.
Yeah.
It's a terrible business model, but it's a great way of being able to make sure people get better. And so I like to be able to give people to rehab, to be able to give them those tools to be able to actually get better on their own. And also on your point, people adjust and they say goodbye. I adjust or do whatever I'm doing, and I have you stand up like, "How are you feeling?" That's still happening. Let's do something else then. And that's a huge aspect of functional neurology, and just me as a person, is you always have to check and recheck. Okay? You're not going to get it 100% of the time, and you have to be able to listen to the patient to be able to understand if you need to do something more or different. Especially with functional neurology, if you're even slightly off, it can make things worse. And so you have to be able to flex and be able to make it right. So yeah, I do definitely give a lot of homework, because I want my patients empowered to be able to do it themselves. And that's a huge part of it. I want to be able to be an active part of their journey, but ultimately it is my goal to miss my patients. I want to be like, "I haven't seen that person in a while." And I send them a text, and they're like, "I'm all good." It's like, "I'm happy for you, but I'm a little sad because I want to see you." It's nice to hang out with you. So, but ultimately I want to miss my patients. That is my goal.
Yeah. Yeah. And you do it with something a little unique when you give that homework assignment, which I wish so many more providers would do. What is that thing that you do at the end of the appointment?
You just cut out.
Oh, man. What did you hear me say?
Just that you do something a little different.
Yeah. Start that sentence over again. So you do something a little different at the end of your appointments that I wish more providers would actually do. Can you tell me, our listeners, what that little thing is that you do at the end of the appointments for the homework?
Yeah. So this is definitely something I stole from Schmo. It's a brilliant idea, and it's so simple. I have you take a video of me. And I do your rehab for you. And that way you don't have to question what you need to do. Especially with some of the eye movements that I have people do. It's so particular, so nuanced, that if you do it wrong, you could literally be doing the exact opposite thing you should be doing, and it'll make yourself worse. And so I don't type up 17 paragraphs for you to try and read when you can't even look left and right and read. So I just have you take a video of me, and that way you know what's happening. And a lot of times people take that and they'll bring it to their other providers. They'll bring it home and show their spouse. And because I also do a little video of just a recap of what we went through on that day and what's going on and why you're feeling the way you're feeling and the next steps. And that way my brain injured patients don't have to try and remember something complex. Amazing. You actually just give them the tools to be able to walk away with, and they don't have to try and remember something when they're brain injured. But so many people miss that, because so many people just don't really respect the brain injury for what it is, and be like, "Cool, I gave you a rehab. It's up to you to do your rehab." You need to spell it out for them, and you need to be able to make sure they do it right. And so the videos are a great way of doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you do that. I have given a few patients the option that they can, but they never do. They forget or whatever. But I at least always write out on their after visit summary, this is what I want you to do. And I put it in bullet points. There's no paragraphs. Like when I was in your shoes, I did not read paragraphs. So bullet
Right.
points it is. That's it.
Yep. I don't even give people the option. It's like, you're going to take a film, you're going to take a video of me. It's like, video of you? It's like, yes,
Yeah.
video of me.
Yeah. Yeah. At some point I might integrate that even more. But they do at least appreciate the bullet point sentences. So they've got some
Yep.
kind of reminder of what they need to do. So yeah, I love that you do that because you meet the patient where they are and you truly do help them get better because if you can remember your exercises, you can do them. But part of it is remembering to do them, which can be a problem with brain injured patients as well. But if you can't even
Right.
remember how to do them, you're certainly not going to get them done at all.
Absolutely not. And so you need to be able to cater to them. You need to be able to give brain injured patients more tools to be able to help themselves because they need it. And ultimately, most people do.
Are there any other little tips or tricks that you picked up along the way that you found just super useful as you're taking care of people?
I would say probably one of the biggest things that I have found that has really kind of influenced my care and it kind of makes me a little different than others is I always believe the patient. I always believe the patient. If a patient says they're looking through electrified cellophane when they drive over a bridge, I believe them. That's a pretty unique experience. I don't think that they made that up. I don't think it's psychogenic. Even if I can't explain it, I'm going to go ahead and try and figure out how to rehab it. And sometimes you get to have that luxury, but you don't necessarily need to explain something to be able to fix it.
Yeah.
And so that keeps me as a provider from going, it's all in your head in the negative way. If someone says if someone is telling me their experience, I'm not going to assume they're psychosomatic. And I think that's one of the biggest things that has really shifted me is I always believe my patients. And it would be a lot easier if I did it sometimes. Then people wouldn't get as good as quickly. So that's one little tidbit that I kind of gleaned just through working through the cases I've worked through is you always have to believe your patients, no matter how hard it may be.
Yeah. I think that in combination with if you believe them and they feel heard, that there's probably a little bit of a placebo effect in that, but that helps them feel a little bit more trust with that healthcare relationship. And they're more likely to keep coming back to actually do the work and get better too.
And trust is so important, especially when you're not within insurance networks. It's easy for people to look at you as like a money grab or like, why am I spending this much with this guy or whatever it may be? They have to be able to trust you. And I want my patients to trust me because I want them to be able to know that I have their back. My patients text me and call me all the time, and I can't always get right back to them, but I'll get to them as soon as I can. And so there's been plenty of times where I've made an urgent call out to someone's house because they had a horrible migraine. And I was like, cool, this is our chance to be able to really see what's going on with your eyes during your migraine. I'll be there in 15 minutes. And so we figure it out and rehab it, and they don't have any migraines anymore. And so that's well worth it. But you have to have enough trust and comfort with your patients to be able to even get to that point, because otherwise they won't call you.
Yeah. That's definitely unique. How can people find you if they want to learn more about what you're doing, if they're local maybe and they want to see if you might be a good fit to work with?
So you can always find me on my website is probably the best way to reach out to me. There's a contact form on the website. I always do a phone consult with my neuro patients beforehand just to make sure that we're the right fit. There's plenty of phone consults I have like, nope, you need to do this and this and this first to make sure that we can get this working. Okay? Things like mold toxicity, Lyme, stuff like that. All that fun stuff. We need to roll that out first for some people. .com. You can contact me there. Otherwise, you can email me directly at connect@drbrandonmobile.com. Those are the best ways to be able to contact me. Otherwise, I'm driving all around the cities like a madman at all times. So answering my phone or answering a text is a little dicey at times. So just reach out to me through those two means. That would be the best way.
There. And I will include those in the show notes so people can find you and they don't have to write anything down while they're potentially driving and listening at the same time too. Any last words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our listeners today as we wrap up?
Utilize your resources. I would say if they're listening to this, they already are because you're a huge resource. I've referred other of my patients of mine to your podcast. What you're doing is phenomenal. But always find those resources. There's always people out there willing to help you. And so just keep looking. And if you can't find someone, reach out to me and I'll help you find someone, even if it's not me.
Perfect. Appreciate that referral as well also. But thank you so much for being here today, Dr. Brandon. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Brain Wellness, the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to subscribe, like, and share this with others to help me continue on with my mission to help people live healthier, happier lives. Go to www.brainwellnesssolutions.com to see what I'm up to and get links to all the social medias there. See you next time.